In Pokemon Yellow, there is a rather large obstacle early in the game. That obstacle is Brock, as your starter Pikachu's electric type moves do not affect Brock's rock type. Pikachu is also weak to ground and rock type attacks. Thus, it is very likely you won't defeat Brock on your first try with Pikachu being your main Pokemon in battle. Thus, this will resort to you having to look for other Pokemon available, as you can progress in the game without defeating Brock. Thus, Brock the Roadblock. Welcome to my two-part mini-series where we contrast Pokemon Yellow to Let's Go Pikachu and how the differences reflect and educate a new player to the series on the basics of Pokemon by the experiences of battling Brock. In this episode, we will be going over how Brock as an early game roadblock in Yellow encourages exploration and experimentation, and how that feeling is missing from Let's Go. A person playing Pokemon for the first time wouldn't know that a grass type or water type is the key to defeating Brock. Naturally, they would put their faith in their starter Pokemon, which is Pikachu in Pokemon Yellow. Its electric type moves do nothing, and its normal type moves do very little to Brock's Onix and Geodude. So this battle with Brock would be a rude awakening to someone playing Pokemon for the first time, likely not having a close battle at all. So what would be the next course of action for the player? Well, if Pikachu is no match for them, you would try other Pokemon. Type advantages would be a new concept to the player, so they may be unfamiliar with the fact that a water or grass type Pokemon is super effective against rock types. But knowing that wouldn't have mattered. Why is that? Well, because there is no water or grass type Pokemon available prior to your match with Brock. You can't explore any areas after Pewter City without defeating Brock. Thus, the premise of the roadblock. This would force you to backtrack to the areas that you can access and contemplate catching Pokemon that you may have originally passed on. This is an example of exploration and experimentation at its finest. Pokemon is a linear game, while Gen 1 does have some flexibility later in the game. It is still a linear experience, as most paths have one entry point and one exit point. However, in terms of exploration, I am referring to interacting with the environment and exploring the possibilities of Pokemon encounters. To connect us back to Brock, like I mentioned earlier, there is no water or grass type Pokemon available, so you would be willing to experiment with other types of Pokemon since you would not stand a chance against Brock with a Pikachu and a Pidgey. You are forced to backtrack and catch Pokemon to expand your team. You are forced to experiment because what the game would tell you to look for is not available. You may catch a Caterpie and notice it performs poorly against Brock, but then you evolve it to a Butterfree and see that it learns Confusion. You then realize that Confusion can be an effective move in aiding you in victory. Or maybe you decide to catch a Mankey. It is no match for Brock. That is until you learn Low Kick, which you learn is very strong against Brock, and learn a new facet of the type advantage scheme. Or maybe you decide to catch a Nidoran boy or girl, and do the same with Double Kick. Butterfree was my scenario when I was a kid. For those who remember their first Yellow playthrough, maybe you did something different to prepare yourself to defeat Brock. Having an early game roadblock like Brock was a great lesson, as I realized how effective type advantages is in terms of swaying a battle. I also learned not to judge a Pokemon by its appearance. Sorry, Jinx. Having that roadblock forced me to learn those lessons. I explored all those past routes to strategize my victory to defeat Brock. Having an early game roadblock like Brock was a great lesson, as I realized how effective type advantages is in terms of swaying a battle. If I had a Squirtle, I wouldn't have needed to backtrack and explore the wild grasses. I would have continued moving forward, and thus those areas would have become meaningless and forgettable to me in my adventure. Having roadblocks in Pokemon are a great thing, but that is also the nature of the game. Each player has a different type of adventure, especially since in most games you pick one of the three starters instead of a starter being forced onto you. Roblox forces you to become observant to your surroundings, which also gives the Pokédex more use. Brock was not a Roblox just because he was a difficult matchup. He was a Roblox because you must learn the concepts of Pokemon to move forward in the game. What if you were able to keep progressing all the way to Cerulean City without the Boulder Badge? Pokemon Yellow reinforced the concepts of exploration and experimentation, which makes your adventure much more memorable. In Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu, they made some changes. For one, you can't battle Brock unless you have a grass or water type Pokemon, which was not possible to catch in Yellow. They added Oddish to Route 1 and 2 and Bulbasaur in Viridian Forest, so now you have grass type Pokemon accessible early in the game. Since you are forced to select either a grass or water type Pokemon prior to facing Brock, you are taught that those two types of Pokemon are strong against rock types. So naturally, the player would go with the grass type Pokemon. The experimentation factor is completely removed due to this. You wouldn't consider to catch other Pokemon if you know that grass types are the key to victory. This is emphasized by the fact that there are no wild battles. You catch Pokemon at will, and thus may not pay close attention to the Pokemon and its moves and types itself. If Pokemon Yellow had the same function, where you couldn't battle Brock without a water/grass type, and they included one of those types in the earlier areas, then you wouldn't have considered to go for a Mankey, or a Nidoran, or a Butterfree. Having challenges in my eyes really brings out the exploration factor of Pokemon because it is a linear game, and being able to breathe through the experience makes most of the areas forgettable. The Pokemon themselves define the importance of an area. Pokemon Yellow and Let's Go Pikachu show both sides to how Brock was used and how it affects the experience of someone experiencing Pokemon for the very first time. So I feel newcomers to the series playing Pokemon Let's Go are missing out on the experience of exploration and experimentation. What does Route 2 or Route 3 or Viridian Forest mean to them? Exploring and experimenting with different kinds of Pokemon is an integral part of the experience. With wild battles being removed, more Pokemon would likely be caught in Let's Go versus the original Yellow game. However, if the Pokemon themselves are not used in a meaningful manner, for example in Pokemon battles, then they're not memorable and thus do not define a moment for the player. While I believe Let's Go does miss out on those experiences, which I believe was fundamental into building my love for Pokemon Yellow, its differences still does serve newcomers to the series in other ways, which we will be exploring in the second part of this series. Playing through Let's Go and seeing the differences between it and Yellow made me more observant to the subtle things that both games do differently for the player. So, I fully expect to make more videos in the veins of this one on both games. So if that interests you, I hope you will consider subscribing. What are your thoughts on Brock serving as a gateway to exploring and experimenting with new Pokemon? What were your experiences playing through Yellow and Let's Go? I'm looking forward to reading your thoughts. Thank you for watching.